Hey guys, welcome to the Wedding Reporter podcast. Today we have an engagement report, and I have Brittany Lo with me, and she just got engaged to her fiance, Corey Stockmall. And I'm going to go ahead and just read her bio so you can find out more about her. So, as the CEO and founder of Beautini, the NYC based bridal beauty experience featured in People Magazine, the New York Times, The Knot, Brides, and more. Brittany Lo and her team of 80 stylists have empowered thousands of brides and their closest circles through confidence skyrocketing makeovers on the big day. With her newest beauty company, Bea, Brittany is continuing her mission to empower women to feel confident in their own skin in a bigger way. Enter Bea, a skincare company that addresses intimate care in an elevated, luxurious way with clean, premium formulas that make us feel comfortable in our own skin, in the bedroom and beyond. So, welcome, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk with you because I saw your engagement photos on Instagram in Paris and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I need to know all the details. I'm so excited for you guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um so
I've
yeah,
been
I
here for so long. It's fun to be on this side of weddings finally.
I know, right? Yeah. So I guess let's backtrack a little bit. So tell me more like how you did get started in weddings and just with the beauty and everything.
So it's funny. So when I was in high school, my parents were like, just study, don't get a job. And then I had a family friend who did catering for weddings. And his
Okay.
Ola's Cafe right down the street, who's a family friend. So I was like, listen, Eddie, can you please give me a job? And through catering, I did so many weddings. I was like, oh, this is so much
Wow.
fun. I did all through
Yeah.
college when I was home for breaks. And so I've never really thought anything of it, but I was the biggest dreamer of my own fairy tale, loved catering weddings, and I
Oh.
thought it was just a chapter of my life. But fast
Mm.
forward to graduating college, I went to Babson College to study entrepreneurship. And I always said
Cool.
I'd have a beauty company. And so, but I didn't know where the white space was for product. So I was like, let me
Hmm.
work with women. Let's do beauty services. That's when Dry Bar and Glam Squad was
Oh
becoming
yeah.
popular. So I was like, let's just start on the service side. And when I was working on it, I was like, well, I want to create an experience that people care about. And when
Hmm.
you think about someone hiring you quickly before a meeting or whatever, it's very transactional. And so that's when I was like, there's something more to this. And at the time, I had a few friends that were getting married and they couldn't find a beauty provider that really aligned with their like natural, soft glam.
Mm.
I was like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Okay, weddings seems like it's this thing. And as I actually know a lot about weddings because I used to like run like the back end through this catering company. Let's try out weddings. And that's honestly how I fell into creating Beautini, which specializes in hair and makeup for weddings and events.
That's so awesome. I love that, like, through your experience working at a catering company and your entrepreneurship background, like, all the stars aligned for you to just like start this whole like beauty, almost like concierge service, sort of, where it's just like providing an amazing experience for brides who like want that more natural look. And yeah, it's providing something totally different because, and I could go off on a tangent here, but like, I feel like, especially now, like brides are kind of wanting more of their natural beauty to shine. And it's not so like done up with all the lashes and like where you're sort of like, you look like someone who you don't normally look like on your wedding day. And so that's kind of the vibe I'm getting, is that sort of like what you guys are all about with Beautini.
Yes, it's like about like embracing your like natural features. It's like
Yeah.
we look like the best version of you, right? We want your skin to
Yeah.
and more of like more effortless red carpet looks where your skin
Mm.
look absolutely glowing. Whereas at the time of starting Beautini, wedding hair and makeup could be a big, big
Oh, yeah.
teasing and like big like lashes, and then just like the before and afters were just unrecognizable. And so,
Right.
yes, we want you to photograph really beautifully, but we also want you to
Mhm.
feel comfortable and beautiful when you look at yourself in real life in a mirror,
Mhm.
and want your fiance to recognize you. So it wasn't
Oh,
like
yeah.
a revolutionary idea, but I think that so many
Mhm.
offerings out there really focused on bridal being so much different than what the client really looks like on a daily basis. So it's really just
Yeah.
understanding the needs and creating a brand around it.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, I started at 22 when I had no boyfriend. I was so single and nowhere close to getting married. So it's funny, almost 10 years later, I'm finally a Beautini client myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know. That's so cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask you too, like, have you kind of seen like after being in the bridal industry and just like working with brides, like, is it kind of like the pressure's on now a little bit where like you're the bride and like you're the star of your own show where you're like, okay, I've helped all these other people now, but like now it's my turn. Like, how do you feel about all that?
So I've been in the industry for a decade, right? So it is wild
Wow.
to think like, when people would ask, oh, like how much should we expect for a photographer or designer or whatever it might be? I'm like, oh, like just talk from business, right? But now putting
Right.
myself in the shoes where it's like, oh, it's our budget, it's our money. Like, how do you put all this together? It's very
Yeah.
overwhelming because I work with the most talented vendors and friends out there, and their work is
Hmm.
stunning. But to put yourself in realistic shoes and have a real budget where you can't just choose all these incredible vendors, it definitely makes it difficult, but the pressure of having this amazing wedding is still there.
Yeah, that's so true. Because you have the insider scoop, insider information that like most brides don't have if they don't work in the wedding industry, where like so many people just get this sticker shock where they're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe like that is not what I budgeted for my wedding. And like all these vendors are like way more expensive, and the wedding that I want like might not be possible, and blah, blah, blah. But like, you've been able to like see that through and throughout the years, 10 years of being like, okay, this is like the industry standard, and like this is what I, and seeing so many weddings happen too, I'm sure you're just like, okay, I like that, don't like that, want to do this. And I'm sure with all your friends getting married too, it's just like you've had like all these experiences already to just kind of like dive into your own experience. So
The funny part though is even though I know pieces of the puzzle and I understand like a
mm-hmm.
timeline and whatever else, and I've been
Right.
in the world, I still had major sticker shock. Like I didn't
Ah.
realize like catering was as expensive as it is. And I also like the AV and lighting. Like I totally did
Oh
not even
yeah.
do that in my initial budget, which are big pieces and just in the
Yeah.
like like admin fees, like all these when you think about gratuity, there's all these little nuances that of course
Mm-hmm.
um can make logical sense, I guess, like if you're a planner, but being in the industry, but not being able to see the full picture, I very much
Mm-hmm.
had sticker shock.
Oh yeah, I know. It's inevitable. And like you said, there are so many hidden costs where you're like, wait, I have to pay for like I was just talking to someone on the podcast the other day, like lighting just for a path to the bathroom, or like
Yes.
all these random things that you just like would never think about, and you're like, oh, add it to the tab, add it to the tab. So yeah.
Yes, and even at the last wedding conference I went to, there was like a big influencer who was like, "Weddings are such a scam. I can't believe people charge this much." And so people ask me, they're like, "Isn't it crazy? Like the same venue is so much more if it's a wedding versus a corporate event." And even being in the shoes of a bride, I'm still very confident. I'm like, listen, if it's a corporate event, they have a set budget. No one's like drinking an absorbent amount. It's usually
Yeah.
like you pick the menu, just please show up at this day, this time. Here's our budget. Here we go. And it's very transactional. When you are working with,
Mm-hmm.
right, like even myself, like we want to know, it's not just put flowers on the table, make it beautiful. It's like, well, here's my inspiration. How are we going to make this to life? Can we hop on another call? Like the hand holding, the
Mm-hmm.
level of service that goes into servicing a bridal couple versus a corporate client takes up a lot more time.
Mm-hmm.
You're eating more food, you're consuming more of the service. So I always like to preface, like, even though it can be so expensive, like, there's a reason why weddings happen to be more pricey than if it was just a simple dinner party.
Oh yeah, I agree too. And like with a corporate event, it's like, okay, there's somebody at this corporation who specifically does these events, and they've done it however many times. They do the same thing every year or whatever. And it's like, that's their job. So they're experienced in that, where it can be more transactional, where like with a couple, most couples like have never had a big event or a wedding this big in their life. And so like you're so right, there is all that hand holding, there's so much education that needs to happen with a couple from all of their vendors in order to get a great result, and to just be super transparent about everything that's in the contract and everything that's going on. And so you're totally right with the difference there. And yeah, from being on a vendor side, I'm sure you understand too. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but okay, I feel like we got a little sidetracked there. I want to get back to your engagement. So tell me all the details. Like, why were you guys in Paris? Like, how did it all happen? Did you suspect anything?
So my fiance Corey and I have been dating a little over 4 years. And Paris, I studied abroad there. That's always been my like happy place aside from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I studied abroad. I was like, this is where I like fell in love with myself, and it's just like such a
That's so
beautiful
cool.
city. So I was like, one day, like literally, I think since high school, I said one day I want to get proposed to in Paris.
Oh,
And
I
then
love
you're like,
that.
I told Corey, and I was like, this is what I want ideally. And then you wait and date for a while, and you're like, honestly, wherever you propose, I'm like gonna be happy with it. And so my
Mm-hmm.
best friend was getting married in Italy in May, so I was like, oh, maybe he'll propose in Italy, or he'll wait until the fall. I really had no idea, but in the back of my mind, always hoped for Paris. But then we went to the Amalfi Coast after this Italian wedding, and I was like, wait, there's only one more night left of this trip. I guess it's not happening. Could not
Oh.
sleep. But I was like, you know what? Let me wake up at 6 a.m. for our shuttle that was coming. I was like, Brittany, just curl your hair just in case. Like, was crying. I'm like, it's not happening.
Right.
And then
Oh.
as I'm curling my hair, Corey's like, you don't need to be doing that. And so I start bawling. I'm like, it's not happening. And he's like, you don't need to be doing that because we're gonna have plenty of time at the hotel in Paris. I was like, oh my gosh. So he told
Oh
me
my
6
gosh.
a.m. At right before we left for our flight. So then I knew like, oh my God, we're going to Paris. So I'm assuming it'll happen, but I don't know how long we're going to be there. And so we go to Paris, we check into our hotel, and naturally he knows I love my hair and makeup. So he's like, I have 2 hours, like blocked off for you to just like do your hair and makeup, enjoy. And so it was neat because even though I didn't know if like the proposal was happening that day or the
Mhm.
next day, I knew it was happening. And so I was able to
Yeah.
just have this like time with myself, have this really fun playlist, and just like soak in
Gosh.
the moment. And so I got dressed, and he called an Uber. I had like no idea. I thought we were going on the river. And so then he led us to this bridge where I didn't realize that he had a photographer there who was also like
Oh my gosh.
videotaping on his phone. He asked me, and it was the coolest, most surreal moment. Like I blacked out basically.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's like the Eiffel Tower is like right in the background. And it's just like your photos, it's like your hair is just like blowing so amazingly. And you're like, oh, and it's just like so picture perfect. I'm like, oh my
I
gosh.
make very ugly crying faces, and I was like, I actually like. There's a few that make me look fine, but the cool part was, so then we take photos of the photographer, and
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe he flew us to Paris. This is exactly. It was like with Eiffel Tower. He had a photographer. Like this is, and yeah, like it. Now I get to marry him, and so then we go in.
Oh.
He's like, "Shoot, I messed up our dinner reservations. We have some lag time. Let's just like run into a hotel, like a cafe." Naturally, I was being difficult and chose a different cafe than he pointed out. We sit down. He runs to the bathroom. I'm on my phone, and then I look up, and all of a sudden, our parents walk in. So not only did he propose, but
No.
he had our parents come too.
Stop. That's amazing. You flew your parents out to Paris. That's
Yes. So
incredible.
that was like my favorite. Like, of course, the moment of being asked was like
Yeah.
the dream and the once in a lifetime, but like having my parents and our families there to like
Oh
have
my
dinner with
gosh.
and enjoy this whole celebration. That actually, I maybe only told him once, like a few years ago, like I'm so close to my family, that'd be so cool, but I could never ever ask them to fly to a different country to
Yeah.
watch the proposal, but he made it happen. And It was just it was so, so sweet, and then we finally come home, and then there's, like, flowers all over the hotel room, and
Oh
there's
my gosh.
but the coolest part wasn't
Wow.
about the flowers, but he actually had one of my closest friends who's a florist. She flew from Italy from my friend's wedding to
No
come to
way.
Paris to put
Oh
flowers all
my
over
gosh.
before going back to the
Stop.
States, and so, yes, it was beautiful, but the coolest part was that he really involved, like, the most important people and made it such a fun
Yeah.
experience.
Oh my gosh, what a dream.
It's
The story just keeps like getting better and better as you're telling it. I'm just like, this is incredible. Like, okay, so he chose a cafe. Was all your family at that cafe? And then when you changed your mind, did he have to like text all of them quick, like behind the scenes, being like, we're going to this one now? Like, is that what happened? Oh my gosh.
complete. It started pouring. So you just like wanted to run into one, and he's like, but you know what I was like? He's like, this is Brittany. This is who I'm
Yes.
marrying. Always has to make it a
Yes.
little more difficult. And so yeah, they
Yes.
came to the new one because he had to run to the bathroom to like call them. So then they
Right.
came, and then we did dinner, and yeah. So
Cool.
lots of moving parts, and he was with all my friends the week before, so he had to make sure no one was going to spill the beans.
Yeah. Oh, that's risky. Yeah.
And even his mom, he's like, no one can text her. Like, it was amazing. He did such
Wow.
a good
Yeah.
job.
And he had to bring the ring internationally and like have it that whole week of the wedding in Italy. Like, wow, what a risk taker. Like,
Well, actually, he didn't. So it's funny
oh,
because
he didn't?
I,
Okay.
well,
Okay.
naturally, I was going a little stir crazy. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I didn't know was at one point in Italy, I was like, oh, so are you nervous? Your bags are near me. What if I see the ring? Like, just trying to get him to stop proposing. And I
That's
was
so
taking
good.
desperate measures. He's like, I promise you, check my bags. There's no ring. And so I'm like patting down his bags. I'm like, where is that ring? He's like, it has to be here. And there was no ring. And so you're
Oh my gosh.
what happened was my dad drove into the city right before we left for Italy, picked up the ring from Corey, and flew, so that way Corey didn't have to travel to
Oh,
Italy with this ring while staying with me for a week. And
perfect.
so then my
Yeah.
dad flew it in Paris. And so when I was getting my hair and makeup done, he grabbed us coffees, which I asked him to go get coffees, but what I didn't realize was he actually went to get the ring for my dad.
Oh my gosh. So
So like,
sneaky. I love it. He knows you though. He had to do that for you.
I, yeah, you knew how desperate, desperate measures I would take. So that was hilarious.
Yes.
That was a really good thought on his part.
That is so good. He would do whatever it takes to get a surprise from
Yeah, he
you.
threw me off and just loved to poke the bear, being like, "There's no ring.
Yes.
You're not going to Paris."
Yes.
And so he definitely probably enjoyed teasing me leading up because I was going a little crazy, but
That is so good. And like, I love what you said too about like getting ready and how you like kind of knew that it could be coming and you just like took that time to soak it all in and to just like do like take your time with your hair, like nothing was rushed and to just like prepare yourself for that moment that was coming. And I think that's so important and so cool. Like if you know that it's coming to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, and then like the funny part is like up until like the night before, I didn't sleep because I was so upset it was gonna happen. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
so now I have to like put extra concealer on. But it was good. Like, even I've had friends who on their wedding day they've taken a moment and just like soaked in the day, and it's not about the
Mhm.
party, but it's really about these like monumental life moments that we're about to enter. Like I was
Oh
transitioning
yeah.
from having a boyfriend and us dating to like getting married and being engaged, and that's so significant that and it goes by quickly. Like even when he was proposing, we both were like, wait, so what did you say? And he was like couldn't keep his words straight because we were both like nervous and like blacked out, and it's hard to like be so present in the moment. So I
Mhm.
really enjoyed being able to have that time before it actually happened to like reflect and just feel so grateful, and so excited for this next chapter.
Mhm. That is so cool. So how long were you guys together before you guys got engaged?
So almost 4 years. So we just celebrated 4 years
Okay.
end of July, and it happened in May. So
Awesome.
definitely, I'm 32, he's 34. So I was definitely ready to be engaged at that point.
Yeah.
I've known him for over 10 years. One of my good friends from
Whoa.
school actually married one of his best friends.
Oh,
So
cool.
very small circles. But it was worth, like, it was really nice. Like, I'm glad we didn't rush it and like really enjoyed the time
Hmm.
of dating. And now we can just both be so excited about what comes next.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what is next? Like, so this all happened in May, and now you've been planning your wedding. So like, tell me all about your wedding planning process and like how that's going.
So, in full transparency, we did start the process, like started talking about weddings and like what does this look like earlier
Oh,
this year.
good.
I do think like just being
Okay.
transparent on like
That's
goals and like
great.
relationship and having those check-ins are have been so helpful for us. And so
Hmm.
he's like, even if I propose like end of the year, like I'm we should like look at venues or we should do XYZ because if you want it, the
Nice.
reality of wedding planning is that if you don't want to wait 2 years, a lot of times venues do book up by early summer.
Hmm.
So
Oh
I
yeah.
think that it shouldn't be a huge surprise that you're getting engaged to start with. You're probably having those conversations. So we're like, let's just be curious. Let's go see some venues. So we end up seeing a venue that we like both fell in love with. Didn't sign or anything. We're like, okay, this seems like our dream. So that's really helpful.
Hmm.
And then part of what we worked on even before was like, okay, what like would this venue work? And the biggest piece of the puzzle when starting a wedding is your guest count, right? Are you going to have
Oh yes.
50 people?
Hmm.
Are you doing 50 people? Because not all venues are the same sizes. And so we kind of had an idea of what that would look like and then some venues. So when we got engaged, it allowed us just to like enjoy being engaged for a bit. I
Hmm.
went to like a wedding industry conference the week after. So I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh, I got to
cool. Wow.
my ideas or what I want a little sooner than
Yeah.
anticipated. But just enjoying, I think, is the best first step. And then second is getting your list of guests together.
Oh yeah, definitely. That is a huge factor because that determines the price for everything too.
Absolutely. It's not just
Yeah.
the venue, like, oh, does it work? Because our venue can like have up to like a couple hundred people and you can have intimate, but it's also like the food is a huge piece. Like F&B is
Mhm.
a big piece of the budget. And so the difference between 250 and 150 people is pretty significant. So I roughly like we kind of knew what the venue was. So we're like, let's lock in that, but before we do that, what are the biggest, most expensive vendors? When we thought about it, it's like the rent designer, he encompasses like rentals, your glassware, tables, florals, etc. So I knew that would be a
Mhm.
big piece. Other big piece would be naturally food and beverage. And then the other big piece I wanted to understand was the venue pricing. And so
Mhm.
before we signed the venue, I was like, if I can understand these three buckets, I'll feel confident that we can assign with this venue, um, knowing that we can stay within the budget that we have. I think that this is the time when you don't have your venue to hire a planner ahead of time.
Mhm.
I just wanted an idea. And so those were like the main pieces. And then we picked our planner. We got our venue the same time as we got our planner so she could
Oh,
review our
good.
contract. And
That's
then
great.
our caterer, um, and then the designer. So we really worked on
Mhm.
the big pieces first, and then naturally hair and makeup through Beautini, and that
Right.
was
Yes.
me.
That part's easy, right?
Hey, there's people reaching out for dates after ours. Like I need to sign with Beautini.
Yeah, you're like, I need to get on my own calendar here.
Yes, my team. I was like, can you send me a contract? Can you put this on the calendar? Like, is so and
Yeah.
so free?
Totally. That's awesome. That's so cool. And so all of this was like before Paris, is that correct?
Right, no, just Paris. All we did was think through like what size of a wedding would we want, and then we
Okay.
at this venue that we had.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that
And then
was it.
all the food and beverage and everything design
Yeah,
came
that all
after.
happened
Okay.
after we got engaged. I was like, let's. But I think that there's a lot of stress when someone gets engaged because the next thing people say, because when you're dating, you're like, when are you getting engaged, right? But once the
I
moment you're
know.
engaged, you're like, when are you getting married? And I
Mhm.
knew I would have a lot of anxiety from that question, knowing that I'm in
Yeah.
the industry. So I was like, if I at least have an idea of where or when, then we can just enjoy and like almost like push the can down the road. So that's when we're like, oh,
Hmm.
like we're hoping to get married upstate next August. And they're like, wonderful. Next topic,
Hmm.
right? And I think that was like
Yeah.
so that we didn't have to like rush into planning because it was very important
Hmm.
for us to enjoy this process and not feel so stressed out every moment
Oh
of the
yeah.
process.
Yeah, definitely. That's so great. And so now you have over a year of planning, right? If you said next August,
Next
that's
August, yep.
kind of
So
like your timeline. Okay, awesome.
yes, next August 16th of next year is our
Ooh.
wedding. So it's less than a year away, which is
Oh
wild.
my gosh.
Now we're just like
Yeah.
slowly picking our vendors and um,
Hmm.
we have our first design meeting tomorrow, which is really exciting.
Awesome.
So it's and then yeah, just figuring out like room blocks. So it kind of is like
Yeah.
seeing what we need to do at this given time, checking it off the box, but and not feeling rushed. But also like once we decide to like make the decision and move on, something that we see with some clients is when they're so indecisive and they really can't make up a decision, they just become very stressed out the entire year leading up to the
Hmm.
wedding. Whereas, like, once you have a good idea uh, of a certain vendor and you're excited about them, there will always be a million other options. But if you feel really
Yes.
good about them, it does such a service to move forward confidently with that vendor.
Oh,
In my
yeah, definitely. That's such good advice, too. Yeah. And like, I mean, you guys are pretty much a year out, and for you to have all of this planned already, like, that's going to give you so much time to still just like enjoy your
I
time being engaged and like, getting a lot of those big decisions out of the way and being decisive and being as planned out as you guys are, I think that's only going to help you. And yeah, you're not going to be scrambling on your wedding day being like, oh, what songs should the DJ play? Or, like it's been done. It's been done for months. My planner's got this. Everything's been communicated to all my vendors. And like, we can relax, we can enjoy our day
enjoy.
and the time leading up to it.
Yes, and if you hire quality vendors who specialize in weddings,
Hmm.
their job is like their job is wedding. So it's like you let them do what they do best, and your wedding
Hmm.
is going to be phenomenal. It's when
Oh
you're
yeah.
picking maybe a caterer that's never done a wedding before, a photographer that's
Right.
only shot
Whew.
like fashion or whatever it might be. Like that's when things can maybe go a little array. But if you have
Hmm.
people who have great reputations and specialize in this, you're now able to relax knowing that they're going to come together beautifully to put on like the best wedding for you.
100%. That's so true. That's awesome.
So it's been exciting.
Um, so through all of this, I know you have like your design meeting tomorrow. Like, what would you describe your wedding style as being?
So that's a great question. So for us, it's a colorful,
Ooh, I love it.
elevated, um, and fun. So the night
That's so
before,
cool.
we're gonna do like think not Carnival Brazil, but almost like this fun pool party with everyone wears
Oh my
bright colors.
gosh.
Think like
Oh,
glow in the dark
fun.
body paint, really fun like Asian cuisine, really cool DJ. So think like almost like beach club party, but fun, like just like
Yeah.
not like of course elevated, but not stiff.
Right.
Like the idea was
Oh
it to
my
be like this
gosh.
fun weekend. And then incorporate moments or like cultural components to our lives into the wedding to make it as personal as possible. So there's this one place that we went to in Sardinia that was this delicious like restaurant turned beach club, and they had these really fun neon lights, and we just had the best
Oh,
time there. We
cool.
were like, how
Oh
do we
my
like pull
gosh.
in these fun colors, these fun experience that we shared together into our wedding weekend? So that's Friday night. And then Saturday will be more of this, like Thursday is a welcome party. We'll do more like Italian inspired based on Capri, which was our first like
Oh,
vacation
cool.
together. So
I
again, like
love that.
what are those moments? And that's a moment. And then Saturday will be more of this like Parisian, like colorful, but more like pastel palette. My color is our color is Baya purple, which is the color of my
Ooh,
company.
yes.
Lots of pops of purple. But
Cool.
yeah, like it'll just be like romantic, but not be afraid of having some fun moments in the design. But the focus for the whole weekend is fun. So however that looks
Hmm.
like, that's the goal.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So location wise, is everything in New York or are you going to like hometowns or family or anything?
So we're picking upstate New York. So it's about an hour and
Okay.
15 minutes north of the city. It's a venue called Glenmere Mansion. And why we
Cool.
loved it was because it looks like this Italian pink villa, but it's
Oh
very accessible. So
my
our number
gosh.
one top priority was we want to make sure our family and grandparents, like our most favorite people, can be there for this day without having to travel to be there, or at least extensively. So, but we love to travel. So we're like, how do we make the design and the elements of it feel like you're abroad somewhere while being upstate? So I'm
Hmm.
excited because yeah, it's gonna look like we're not in upstate, but I actually grew up
Yeah.
not too far away, so it definitely
Oh,
will be
cool.
nice to be able to have the ceremony amongst all the trees and seeing the Hudson River.
That is going to be so awesome and magical. I cannot wait to see your wedding photos too.
Yeah, no, me too.
Ah, it's gonna be so awesome. And I love like how with your welcome party and every like the events leading up to the wedding, that's where you can like really have fun with like a big theme and big colors and like but still keep it upscale, but just like create these more like memorable experiences for your guests too that like maybe they haven't had before. And I think that's so cool that you guys are just like going for it with that theme. It's gonna be so fun.
I hope so. And I think that's when people walk away. I think you see these stunning photos of weddings on Instagram, or maybe gone to some where they are maybe like the most beautiful party you've ever attended or ever seen on Instagram. But how fun were they? Like, how did people?
Right.
And I always say that when you go to a wedding, what people remember is how they felt, right? So is that
Mhm.
ate? How was the music? Like, how, did they feel warm and loved, or was it like a little sterile, a little stuffy? And so we want everyone to have like that huggable sense when they're with us and just have the best time. And so for design, even though of course like the vendors we're working with, it will be elevated and beautiful, but I think the fun pack when people walk away, it's like, okay, that was so Brittany and Corey. That's the objective,
Mhm.
right? Are we doing like these personalized Chinese takeout bins for our Friday, like how
Oh
you
my
get?
gosh, so fun.
Yes. Are you going to get Shake Shack after our wedding? Yes. Because
Yes.
everyone knows we love Shake Shack. So I think
That's
that's
so
what I'm most
fun.
excited is thinking through all these elements that we enjoy together. So like pancakes on Sundays. We love doing pancakes on the weekend. So our Sunday brunch will definitely have pancakes. And so
Oh
that's
my
where
gosh,
I think,
perfect.
there's this balance of like what's going to be so beautiful, but also like what's going to be so you guys and
Mhm.
really reflect the brand, the couple, as if they were their own brand or entity.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so, yeah, I'm so excited.
That is so true. And yeah, weddings really are turning into the brand of the couple, which I think is so important. It's not cookie cutter and it's something that like people haven't seen before, but it also like those little elements reflect who you guys are and gives people just an inside look at your relationship and how you're coming together. And I think that's so awesome.
Thank
So that's going to be so fun.
I hope so.
Um, yeah, for sure. And I love too that you mentioned like a huggable experience or like that
Yeah.
people want to feel welcome because like a lot of times couples just like make an inspiration board and they're like I like this thing I saw on TikTok or like I like this color and whatever but like to think more outside of the box of like how you want to feel and like you said a warm hug like that is a really cool thing to put on an inspiration board, even though it may not be like a tangible, like visible thing. And so I think that's cool. And making sure all those other added elements can compile into making that feeling happen. So that's
Yes. And
really
I do
cool.
think even like I know I get very overwhelmed with seeing lots of people at once when I'm feeling stressed out. So even when we think through the timeline or when to end hair and makeup versus when photos start, like there's a lot of pieces of planning a wedding, there's a lot of expectations or how weddings are done that you can easily
Mm-hmm.
follow. But I think the most successful weddings, which again, we're not going to have the fanciest wedding. The idea is hopefully we have
Mm-hmm.
the most fun at our wedding. Is like what's
Mm-hmm.
going to work best for you, what's going to work best for you as a couple, and like what's going to mean the most to the most special people who are attending. I went to a wedding recently where I never met the groom or bride. It was one of Corey's friends from growing up that he doesn't see too often, but was so honored that we were invited. And I show up, and the bride gives me the warmest hug. She's like, "I've been waiting to meet you.
Oh,
Like,
oh my
I love what you're
gosh.
doing, your businesses." I'm like, "This is your day, and you made time to like come up to me and hug me like that."
Wow.
That was one of the nicest things ever. And so when I now think through ours, like I do want to make sure that whoever is there, whether they know everyone or only a few people, feel this sense of community there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that all happens from the different elements that you put together, because the couples set the vibe, right? So if we're having
Oh yeah.
fun, that'll relate to everyone else. If we're stressed or worried about the flowers or something, like that's not going to translate the way that we envisioned. So this is easier said than done. So ask me as we get to
Mm-hmm.
the wedding, but
Yeah.
the mindset is for now.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Um, we can wrap up here, but like, do you have any advice for couples who are planning their wedding now? And since you're kind of in the thick of it and everything, like, what would your advice be to them?
I'd say number one is when you doesn't mean you need to make all the decisions right away, but I do
Mm-hmm.
making your decisions and not dwelling on them so that way you can have the contract, have your vendors, and then move on and enjoy is important. Because if you wait too long, the reality is wedding season has you are competing on dates, and so doesn't mean you have to be stressed before you even begin, but really be mindful of when you find that vendor, sign. Don't dwell on it.
Mm-hmm.
You are a trusted wedding vendor. They're going to do everything they can to make sure you have the most amazing wedding, because people who specialize in weddings, in my opinion, do it because they love it. And then
Yes.
number two, when it comes to hair and makeup, I was just talking to a client slash friend today, is, and this goes into our whole conversation, is like understand like what you want, but also what you feel most comfortable with. Like what is truly.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you get this beautiful dress that you love and there's this really low back, don't put your hair up because of the dress when you never wear your hair up. If you always wear your hair
Totally.
down, we can create a look that goes with your dress, but also makes you feel like the most beautiful version of you. And I think that goes into even flowers or whatever else. Like, there's ways of doing things that look pretty, but there's other ways of making things look pretty that are very on brand to you. And there's a difference there.
I love that advice. Yeah, because yeah, some dresses may have like a high neckline and you're like, "Oh, naturally like chignon in the back or whatever." But it's like if that's not you, but you still love this dress with the high neck, like still you do you. You can still wear your hair down with that and like your team will find a way, like you said, to kind of like create it in a way that is unique to you. And so I love that. That's such great advice. And so definitely listen to Brittany here. And then tell us where we can find you online and on Instagram because we're going to want to see all your photos and everything.
Yes, and I'm trying to keep everyone in the journey with me as I try to figure out wedding planning. So my
Yeah.
handle is Brittany, BRITTANY.LO. So please say hello there. And then you can find Beautini at BEAUTINI if you need any hair and makeup inspiration or if you're getting married. But I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you for
Yeah.
getting me even more excited about this
Of
process.
course. This has been so fun. And yeah, if you're listening, definitely go over to NashvilleBrideGuide.com and we have all of her engagement photos that you can scope out and take a look at. So thank you so much, Brittany. This has been so fun.
So fun. Thank you again.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wedding Reporter podcast. I hope you learned a little bit and had fun today. To find more resources and podcast episodes, visit NashvilleBrideGuide.com for more information. And as always, click the subscribe button and leave us a review. Until next time, I'm Alyssa DeChico, signing off.